You're standing outside on a freezing night. You have a jacket, a hood, thick socks, maybe a heated car waiting 50 feet away. Now take all of it. Take the jacket, the socks, the fabric against your skin. Take every thread you have ever owned. What's left is a naked primate shivering in the dark. And for most of the time our species has existed, that is simply what a human being was. So here's the question, and almost nobody stops to ask. Why did we ever start wearing clothes at all? Not fashion, not modesty. The very first time a human draped something over their body and decided to keep it there. Because the obvious answer, the one you've probably already assumed, is that we did it to stay warm. And that answer is technically true and almost completely misleading at the same time. The warmth story goes like this. Humans lost their fur, got cold, invented clothing, survived. Clean, simple, and it fits everything you think you know. But it collapses the moment you ask one follow-up question. If clothing was invented because we were cold, then we should be able to date it to the moment we lost our body hair. And we can't. The two events are separated by hundreds of thousands of years. Start with your body. You are, by any honest measure, a nearly naked ape. You still have roughly the same number of hair follicles as a chimpanzee, but your hairs are thin, short, and useless for insulation. Anthropologists think we shed our fur somewhere around 1 to 2 million years ago, most likely so we could sweat and run under the open sun without overheating. A cooling system, not a warming one. And that hairless body walked the earth for over 1 million years with nothing on it. How do we know when clothing actually appeared? The answer comes from an unlikely witness: lice. Human beings host two distinct kinds: head lice, which cling to the hair on your scalp, and body lice, which live almost exclusively in clothing. Body lice cannot exist without fabric to grip. They evolved for it. Which means the moment body lice split off from head lice as a separate species is the moment clothing became a permanent part of human life. Geneticists have run that molecular clock more than once, and the numbers keep landing in the same window, somewhere between 80,000 and 170,000 years ago. Not 2 million, not 1 million, long after we lost our fur. Which means for the overwhelming majority of our hairless existence, humans wore nothing at all and survived just fine. Clothing is not ancient. Clothing is recent. It arrives almost at the same time as us, the modern version of us. And when you look at the tools, the story sharpens. The oldest-eyed sewing needles, delicate slivers of bone with a hole punched through one end, show up around 40,000 years ago, made by both our own ancestors and by Neanderthals. But a needle is for tailored fitted clothing. Before that came scrapers, thousands of them. Stone blades worn down in exactly the pattern you'd expect from someone cleaning animal hides. The hides came first. The sewing came later. Now here's where the warmth story truly breaks. If clothing were only about temperature, then people living in warm climates should never have bothered. But they did. Across the tropics, in places where you could die of heat stroke faster than frostbite, humans still wrapped, painted, pierced, and decorated their bodies. They wore belts that carried nothing, ornaments that warmed nothing, pigments that insulated nothing. The body was being covered for reasons that had nothing to do with the cold at all. Consider what the earliest evidence of decoration actually is. Perforated shells, strung together and worn as beads, turning up in North Africa and the Near East as far back as 100,000 years ago. Right around the same window the lice tell us clothing appeared. Not tools, not weapons, ornaments. Ochre, the red pigment smeared on bodies and objects, shows up even earlier. Before humans reliably clothed themselves for warmth, they were already adorning themselves for meaning. Because clothing was never just a barrier against the weather. It was information. What you wore announced your tribe, your rank, your marital status, your kills, your gods. A garment could say, "I am dangerous," or "I am spoken for," or "I belong to these people and not those." Warmth kept you alive at night, but signaling kept you alive inside a group. And for a deeply social ape, that second thing was every bit as urgent as the first. So the next time you get dressed, understand what you're really doing. You are performing one of the youngest habits our species has ever kept. An act that began not with a shiver but with a message. A second skin we invented to say something the first skin never could. We didn't cover ourselves simply to survive the cold. We covered ourselves to become someone. If you want us to keep pulling threads like this one, subscribe to The First People and tell us in the comments what you want us to explain next.